Hello everyone and welcome to lesson 21.3B. I've entitled this video, How People Live in Central Africa. This video is going to cover pages 659 to 661. How people live. In Central Africa, daily life and culture reflect the variety of influences to which the region has been exposed. Daily life. Daily life in Central Africa is a blend of traditional and modern characteristics. This combination results mainly from the impact of colonialism. It also reflects the urban-rural division of the population. In the countryside, most people practice subsistence farming. On small plots of land, they grow crops such as cassava, maize, and millet, and they raise livestock. They strive to grow enough crops and raise enough animals to feed themselves and their families. If any surplus remains, they may sell it for small amounts of cash. Many of them never have employment from which they earn money. Question 1. In the countryside, most people practice what type of farming? Subsistence farming. Number 2. In the countryside, what are the three main crops grown? Cassava, maize, and millet. Question 3. In the countryside, what do the families do with the food they grow? Most of the food they grow is just enough to feed themselves and their families. If they do have any surplus remaining, they try to sell it to make small amounts of cash. Most people in the countryside live in small houses that they have built themselves. Building materials include mud, sun-dried mud bricks, wood, bark, and cement. For roofs, people typically use palm fronds woven together or sheets of corrugated iron. One of the most common methods of constructing houses is known as wattle and daub, and you can see that pictured on the right. Poles driven into the ground are woven with slender, flexible branches or reeds to create the wattle. The finished wattle is plastered with mud or clay, known as daub. Then a palm frond roof is placed on top of the house. Question number 4. In the countryside, what type of homes do they live in? Very typically, these are what we would call the wattle and daub, as pictured on the right. Question 5. Explain that process of wattle and daub housing. Well, first, you take poles, you drive them into the ground, and then you take flexible branches of reed to create the wattle. You can see those going across like that. And then the daub is putting in the empty parts between the reeds, and you use like mud or clay. And then at the end, you put a palm frond roof at the top, and you have a wattle and daub house. In much of rural Central Africa, women carry out the gathering, production, and preparation of food for the household. The men hunt, trap, and fish. In addition to growing food to eat, men and women may also grow crops to sell, such as coffee, cotton, and cocoa. Okra, corn, and yams are staple vegetables in the diets of many Central Africans. Other important foods are cassava, sweet potatoes, rice, beans, and plantains. Game is popular, as are fish-based dishes. Peanuts, milk, and poultry add protein to many dishes. Question number 6. In much of rural Central Africa, what jobs are expected to be completed by the women? So they have more of a gender specification in this part of the world. The women are expected to gather, produce, and prepare the food for the home. Question number 7. What jobs are expected to the men? Their expectation is to hunt, trap, and fish. Question number 8. What does the phrase staple food mean? Well, you can see a definition in the bottom left here. Staple foods are foods that make up a region's basic food supply. It's what a lot of people are eating in that part of the world. Question number 9. What are the three staple vegetables of many Central African people? They are okra, corn, and yams. Question number 10. What are 5 other important foods for the people of Central Africa? Those would be cassava, sweet potatoes, rice, beans, and plantains. Many food-related customs of Central Africa may seem surprising. In some areas, for example, males eat in one room while females eat in another. Generosity and hospitality are so deeply ingrained in some cultures that hosts might offer guests an abundance of food while remaining hungry themselves. In many Central African cities, traditional ways of life are yielding to contemporary lifestyles. Modernization, however, has not always come easily. Central Africa has little infrastructure, which includes the fundamental facilities and systems that serve a city, an area, or a country. In the Central African Republic, for example, only a few cities and towns have modern health care facilities. Other obstacles to modernization include poor transportation and educational systems. Question number 11. What are two interesting food-related customs of Central Africa? Well, number one, you may have the males eating in one room and the females eating in another. That is a little different. And then secondly, because they're such a generous and hospitable people, they may offer their guests an abundance of food while they go hungry themselves. That's very interesting. Question number 12. What are three major challenges facing Central African cities as they attempt to modernize? Well, number one, they lack the proper infrastructure. Number two, they have poor transportation. And number three, they have a lacking or poor educational system. Culture and arts. The visual, verbal, and performing arts are important to the cultures of many ethnic groups in Central Africa. In the southwestern part of the DRC, for example, the people known as the Congo produce wooden statues in which nails and other pieces of metal are embedded. The Yaka create highly decorative masks and figurines, and you can see a picture of that on the top right. The Luba people of the southeastern part of the country are known for their skillful carvings that depict women and motherhood. The Mangbetu people of the northeast are known internationally for their pottery and sculpture. In the fields of literature, several modern Congolese authors are internationally recognized as poets, playwrights, and novelists. They include Clementine Mendia Faik Njui, Kama Kamanda, Natum Diur, and Timothea Malembe. The DRC's capital city of Kinshasa is known around the world for its thriving music scene. The most popular style is African jazz, known as OK Jazz. This style originated in the nightclubs of Kinshasa in the 1950s. In northern Cameroon, the Fulani people decorate leather items and gourds with elaborate geometric designs. In music, the country's southern forest region is known for its drumming. In the north, the focus is on flute music. Equatorial Guinea was formerly a colony of Spain, and Spanish influence can be tasted in the country's cuisine. In Malabo, the capital city, Spanish styles are found in the architecture. The country has produced several writers whose Spanish language works have become known around the world. Question number 13. What artistic scene is Kinshasa world renowned? They're known for their thriving musical scene, especially their jazz. Regional issues. Central Africa's people and governments face many complex issues. Among these issues are the economy, the environment, political stability, and population growth. Growth and the environment. With great population growth comes the need for economic development. The economies of many countries in the region depend heavily on agriculture, logging, and mining. Central African countries such as Gabon and Equatorial Guinea export significant amounts of valuable hardwoods, including mahogany, ebony, and ukumi. In general, economic development depends on economic growth. Economic growth usually means that more resources are used and more pollution and waste are produced. In Central Africa, economic activities such as mining and logging are taking place in areas of high biodiversity. Question number 14. What are four main complex issues facing the countries of Central Africa? They are the economy, the environment, political stability, and population growth. Question number 15. What does economic development depend upon? Economic development depends on economic growth. In order for a place to develop, they need the economy to grow. And, following that question, number 16, what three things usually occur when economic growth occurs? So, to have economic development, you need economic growth. But when you have economic growth, three things usually happen. Number one, more resources are used. Number two, more pollution is created. And number three, more waste is produced as well. So it's a balancing act between trying to promote economic growth while also having those negative outcomes. Some conservationists fear that this biodiversity is being lost in the rush to exploit resources. The result is tension between the forces of economic growth and the forces of environmental conservation. In some areas, these tensions have at times led to conflict between local people and outside groups. Development in Central Africa also raises other questions. Should the profits from economic activities go to foreign corporations and investors, or should they remain with the national governments? How should the profits and economic benefits be shared by the people? Question number 17. Why are some conservationists and environmentalists worried about economic activities in Central Africa? Well, they fear that they're losing the biodiversity that is in that region. Question number 18. What are some tough questions that have to be addressed when looking at the development of Central Africa? It's that balance between the environment and the economy. We have, and also when these profits are made, should those profits from economic activities go to the foreign corporations and investors that have invested their time and money into this area, or should they remain in the country itself? And lastly, if the money remains in the country, how should those profits and economic benefits be shared by the people living there? These are some of the tough questions facing Central Africa. Well, thank you so much for watching. Before we go, a meme for you. It's called economic development. Well, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.